Hello everyone. Today we discuss about the advantages of centralizations and decentralizations. So centralization means the concentration of formal authority at the top levels of an organization. It is a tendency aimed at centralized performance. Hence, it is the opposite of dispersal and delegation of authority. It has an important bearing on the processes of policy form and also formulations and decision making. These two major areas of management or administration are the reverse of the top management in a centralized organization. The lower levels of the organizational hierarchy always look upwards for direction, advice, clarification, interpretation, etc. And even the field units or agencies of the parent organization do not enjoy any authority of decision making and hence are fully dependent on the central authority. The field units are required to implement the decision in accordance with the predetermined guidelines as handed down to them by the headquarters, operating as the central authority. Centralization acquires its acute form when an organization operates from a single location, that is, when it does not have any field agencies. In the words, the centralizations has been used to describe tendencies other than the dispersal of authority. They often refers to departmental activities, service, divisions, centralized, similar, or specified or specialized uh, in a single department. But when centralization is discussed as an aspect of management, it refers to delegating or withholding authority and the authority dispersal or concentrations in decision making. Therefore, centralization can be regarded as concepts in organization, centralizations or concentration of physical facility or decision making authority, limited and restrictive use of delegation is, in other words, centralizations, according to Henry Fayol, while taking of decentralizations and centralizations, observes everything that goes increase the importance of subordinates' roles is decentralizations. Everything which goes to decrease, it is centralizations. Now the meaning of decentralizations. The term decentralizations is understood differently by different individuals or groups. So according to Louis A. Allen refers to it as one of the most confused and confusing of the administrative techniques that characteristics the art and science of professional management. The quote and Sherwood, in some respects, decentralization has come to be a gospel of management and regarded as a way of life to be adopted as or adopted as least partially on faith. Secondly, it is an idealistic concept with ethical roots in democracy. Thirdly, it is in the beginning a more difficult way of life because it involves a change in behavior running counter to historically rooted culture patterns of mankind. That is why the new literature of decentralization dwells on how to bring about change in organization behavior. Men find it difficult to delegate, to think in terms of the abstractions required by long term planning, to listen and then to give order, to evaluate other men and their work in terms of overall results instead of irritations and tensions of the moment. Yet, this is the very key to the behavior recruited of leaders in a decentralized organization. It is amply clear that decentralization is not only a device for the delegation or dispersal of administrative authority, but it is also a democratic method of devolutions of political authority. Further, in a decentralized organization, it is also essential to adapt the democratic form. Such norms helps to various levels of administrative organization to develop a reasonable capability for the exercise of authority to reach the most desired decisions. Moreover, they help to assimilate in them the virtues of greater interactions among the various organizational levels, but also between the organization and the client, among the general public. It has been opined that decentralization refers to the physical locations of facilities and the extent of dispersal of authority throughout an organization. Hence, it is an agreement by which the ultimate authority to command the ultimate responsibility for results in locations, units, and different parts of the country. It is urged that assigning of functions and responsibility for their efficient and effective performance to the subordinates or subdivisions is the essence of decentralization. We may say that in a decentralized organization, lower levels are allowed to decide many matters and a few cases involving measures policies or interpretations are referred to the higher levels of the organizations. However, in common decentralizations is interchangeably used with terms like deconcentrations, devolutions, and delegations. Though they have different connections, devolutions has political and legal authority, and amplifications, deconcentrations, and delegations refers only to administrative authority. Decentralization covers the political, legal, and administrative spheres of authority. Four different types of decentralizations can be identified: administrative, functional, political, geographical. Administrative decentralizations refer to decentralizations of authority to the lower official in the administrative hierarchy of organizations. It may also mean decentralizing powers or functions to the subordinate units. Functional decentralizations implies that the functions are decentralized to the specialized units or departments like education or health. Political decentralizations involves that the political powers and functions concentrated in the hands of higher level political organs and decentralized to lower level political organs. You are all aware that Panchayati Raj agencies are units of decentralizations that I mentioned earlier episode, wherein political powers of decision making are decentralized from state. And finally, in geographical decentralizations, the powers and functions of headquarters are decentralized to the field offices for effective performance. For example, most of the powers of the heads of the departments of the state governments are their field officers at the regional and district levels. Now, being the two extremes of the operations of authority are relative terms, we today cannot think of an organization which is completely centralized or decentralized, as in between the operations of the two there is always a continuum of authority. They need to be viewed as complementary to each other as a fair combinations of the two results in stability, accountability, efficiency, effectiveness. Their applications in a democratic setup would depend upon the objectives of the organizations, its life and size, nature of service, etc. It has been said that in order to ensure its existence, an organization has to perform certain functions which are basically centralizing in nature and effect. Moreover, their performance has to be from a central point of authority. Two such major functions are initiations and decision making in relation to basic management functions like planning, organizing, motivating, coordinating, and controlling the work of the subordinates, as also of the field units. Thus, the higher levels, by performing the functions of initiations and decision making, tend to reserve the real authority at the central points of the decisions. On the other hand, Ernest Dale points out that the degree of decentralization is greater in the following situations. The greater the number of decisions made at lower level of management hierarchy, the greater the degree of decentralization. The important the decision made at lower level of management, the greater the degree of decentralization. Now, the authority of sanctioning financial investments or expenditure without consulting anyone else. At decentralized authority structure, more decisions are taken at lower levels, which affect most of the functions of the organization as a whole. Thus, the organizations which only operational decisions to be made at separate branch units and less decentralized than those which also permit financial and personal decisions at branch units. When less checking is required on the decision, decentralization is greater when no check at all is made. It is less when superiors have to be informed of the decisions after it has made, and still less if superiors have to be consulted before the decision is made. When fewer are consulted, and if they are at a lower level in the organization's hierarchy, the degree of decentralization is more. It is therefore clear that the application of the two concepts is greatly influenced by factors more than one. In modern times, when we have a multiplicity of administrative and political organizations, there is a need to use the centralized and decentralized patterns of the authority for the maximum benefits of the people. That is a prerequisite of a welfare or service state. There has been a growing public opinion in favor of decentralization, but at the same time, some political forces and the bureaucracy do not favor a decentralized system for obvious reasons. So, decentralization will always experience a certain amount of epidemic conflict between those whose purpose is to coordinate and those where exist coordinations. What is needed is to learn a way of life in which the coordinating process will be least restrictive. People can pursue their individual goals to the maximum and yet work in harmony to word group goals with others who look upon things differently. As I already pointed out, decentralization has political and administrative elements. However, in management or for administrative organization, it is seen as an administrative device of locations the authority of decisions making in a dispersed manner. Concentration is viewed as concentration of authority in the top management. Examining the two concepts in terms of physical facilities, plant, personnel and equipment, and authority. And organizations exhibit characteristics of both. So, centralization, decentralization's matrix, which is reproduced, and plant, product, services and personal, business functions, equipments concentrated in one facilities, building or in several buildings within a localized area. Dispersed products, services and business functions scattered in many areas. Multi-plant organizations, each subunit is a separate entity, may be autonomous, self-sufficient entity performing most major business functions. Authority, decision making, high degree of concept or consent, high degree of delegations and ration and retention, dispersion of decision making at horizontally or vertically, upper levels of management downward to lower levels of subordinates, highly management, subordinates dependent, relatively independent, profit center concept, the above. So the four possible combinations and the extent of centralization and decentralization differs all of them. The first combination indicates a high degree of concentrations of facilities as also of authority in the top levels of the organization's hierarchy. These levels also perform all the management functions of decision making in directing their effective implementations, such as organizations may exist under the government, especially dealing with sensitive subjects like defense or some aspects of defense productions, and also in some situations in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is a case of minimal or no delegations of authority. In private industry, it resembles the units operating under single or family ownerships whose area of operating is small or well manageable the owners. The second combinations of results in an organization whose physical facilities are centralized at one place. In other words, the products and services are centralized, but the decision making authority is delegated horizontally and vertically. The level to which the authority of decision making is delegated remains accountable to the higher levels for effective management, as its decision must be in conformity with the overall policy of the top management. Such type of situation may be found in service agencies like the state trading corporations or the agencies concerned with food grain procurement and engaged in the public distribution system like the state of Punjab. We may come across an organization in which physically facilities are dispersed or dispersed among various units located in various parts of the country, or a major decision making authority is centralized in the top levels of the management. The units may be vested with only small authority like sanctioning of leave, overtime, etc. Thus, authority to perform a limited number of management functions which are the major policies is delegated so as to enable them to implement the minor aspects of the major policies. Significant the major policy matters are reserved to the top management and are located at the central office or the headquarters. Various road transport organizations, both in the public and private sectors, largely fail in the category. Lastly, a situation in which both the physical facilities are the decision making authority is dispersed or decentralized between various levels and the units. We get an organization based on administrative decentralizations or disconcentration. Such as organization performs wide ranging functions and the units are allowed significant functionally autonomy. The Hindustan Machine Tools Limited falls to a great extent in this category, and the profit center concept as part of this model of organization. It may be mentioned that this concept can only be applied to private buskings, which is largely run on profit motive. However, in government organizations, profit is seen in terms of productivity or social economic gains that are advantageous to the nation as a whole or to a section of people for whom a particular service is specialized or specifically intended. We may adoptions of one or mix of both would depend upon the centralizations and decentralizations organizations and its objectives, the nature of functions, the products or services, long-term plans, and the overall strategy of productions and marketing. Hence, the equilibrium between centralizations and decentralizations would vary with the internal and external forces in operation. Internal forces from the requirement of the principle of hierarchy based on the superior subordinate relationships on the other hand, and the nature of service on the other external forces based on the relationship with the client on the hand, and the environment in which the organization functions. So much would depend on the maturity of the people and levels of the development in a country. In the words, the operations of the principle and energy may not exhibit much authoritarianism when members of the organizations and the clientele are drawn from a society that value greatly the concept success of political and administrations or decentralizations. So very carefully treatment for achieving the desired benefits. Moreover, it requires maturity and character not only on the part of the individual members of the organization but also the culture and the large society as well as the subcultures of the organization itself. So that's the end of the video, my friends. If you like my blogs, please subscribe my channel. Thanks a lot for watching my videos. Have a great day.